Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this afternoon's Lunch and Learn. It is great to have you here. If we haven't met, my name is Brian Schulenberg. I'm the outreach pastor here at Wooddale and lead our Family Resource Initiative, which sponsors these Lunch and Learns almost every Thursday during the school year. Today, you actually get a lunch, and so make sure you pick up some pizza and keep eating until it's gone, because we do not need that here. So just a couple of announcements today, and let me run back to our computer. Our sound guy is not here today, and so I'm going to do double duty today, which is always a little bit scary today, but we're gonna try it out. So want to let you know about a couple of events that are coming up, and in January, one of those events is called Adventures in Marriage. If you are married, this is a conference that's going to take place on a Friday night and a Saturday on January 23rd and 24th. And it is a phenomenal kind of experiential conference. If you've ever been to a marriage conference, this will be a little bit different than what you've experienced. Jim and Patty Robinson are the facilitators of this. And you're going to experience some dramas. You're going to experience some kind of role play situations around the topic of communication, conflict resolution, and you're going to get so many skills in your marriage. It's $60 per couple. That includes a barbecue dinner on Friday night from Baker's Ribs and Saturday lunch. And you can find out more information at the Wooddale calendar on that. We'd love to have you join us. Financial Peace University is a ministry that God has used here in so many families' lives to just help them get victory in their financial lives. And our next session of that is on January 25th, begins then. It's a Sunday morning class from 9 until 10 here at Wooddale. The cost of that is $79. And again, information about that is on our website as well. And then next year's Lunch and Learn schedule is going to be on our website coming up, I believe next week it'll be there, but it's all scheduled. And I want to just give you a preview into what's happening in January. This is our last Lunch and Learn for December with Christmas coming up. But then in January, all of our Lunch and Learns from January through May are going to tie into what Kyle preaches about on Sunday. We're going to try something a little bit different this winter, spring. And so really excited to have Chip Neuenschwander back with us to kick the year off. Chip is the owner of Wyzetta Counseling, phenomenal leader. And he's going to talk about breaking the loop, escaping the stories that keep you stuck. Chad Anderson is next, and he will be speaking about when everything blows up, how do you survive the week that no one saw coming? And Chad is somebody who has experienced crisis in his career and had to kind of manage some serious crises, and has done an amazing job with that. And so if you ever have to deal with crisis management, or you have one of those weeks, you don't want to wait until you have that week to know how to prepare for when the crisis comes. And it's a great presentation. On January 22nd, Maddie Meeker is going to be speaking about when life is hard, why honest grief might be your superpower. And in the Bible, God talks about lament a lot. And there's a lot of people who I think sometimes when it comes to our faith, think we're not supposed to have a bad day. And the Bible just doesn't talk like that at all. There are tough days that all of us are going to face in life. And this is a great seminar for if you're going through some difficult times. And then on January 29th, we have Dr. Maria Kramer with us. Maria spoke on autism last semester. She's going to talk about prayer for skeptics. And so as a therapist, answer the question, can talking to God really reduce anxiety in our life? And I think you're going to enjoy that presentation as well. So that's what's happening in January. But our speaker today is no stranger to this stage. Dean has blessed us on multiple occasions here at Lunch and Learns. Dean leads a ministry called Men of the Kingdom that he began toward the end of a very successful corporate career. But in retirement said, I want to build into to young men, and I want to build into them to help create and build that next kind of level of moral leader in our country. And he is doing an amazing job here in the Twin Cities and around the nation doing that. Dean also serves as an elder here at Wooddale. We're really blessed to have his leadership here. As married to Lisa, they have two wonderful daughters and some wonderful grandsons. And Dean, why don't you come on up here? Great to see you.
Mic on? Okay, perfect. And I do want to thank everybody for staying seated down. I know Andrew came in a little bit late, and as a Yankee fan, he expected everybody to stand up. So I appreciate. Yeah, all right. No, even Yankee fans are welcome. Come on in, buddy. So, again, my name's Dean Stinchfield. I thank you guys for being here. One of the things that will help me out is I love a conversation more than a presentation. So I would love to get your interaction with the material if you have questions or you want to dive deeper on a topic, because we're gonna be looking at some really big topics today. And kind of the title, is Repurpose, Not Retiring. And I could really add the pursuit of happiness in there. So over this next year, the nation is going to be celebrating our 250th anniversary, which is the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And in the Declaration of Independence, it's life, it's life, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Talk about the pursuit of happiness. What comes to mind for the people in this room? Purpose. A for the day, right away. What's that? Fulfillment. Mm-hmm. Friendship. What's that? Pursuit. You're going after it, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when Thomas Jefferson wrote The Pursuit of Happiness, one of the key things that the founders were looking at is they described happiness as the pursuit of the virtuous life. It actually comes from Aristotle's book on ethics, and Aristotle made the claim that your greatest life or your greatest happiness is bounded by the virtues. So liberty is freedom within the moral bounds. So when the founders are like, give me liberty or give me death, is I want a happiness, but I'm going to get happiness bounded by the classical virtues. But when we start thinking about the culture's view on retirement, okay, they'll get me back up. So when the culture starts thinking about retirement, it's outside of maybe some of those bounds. Now, when I say freedom within, liberty is freedom, bounded freedom. So I have a 3.5-year-old son, Parker. And Parker, this summer, we went out on the trampoline. And I was playing Aretha Franklin and Joy to the World. And he was jumping and spinning and doing flips. And he was doing 360s, and he's bouncing off the boundary of the trampoline. So there was a net surrounding the trampoline. And he had complete freedom because he was safe within that boundary. If that boundary wasn't there, he would have been just kind of bouncing in the middle. If you've seen kids on a trampoline, you drive by, and there doesn't have nets around, they're kind of sitting right in the middle of it. But if there's boundaries, they're completely free. So as we celebrate our 250th year of the Declaration of Independence, one of the things I hope is we recapture that idea of the pursuit of happiness is the pursuit within God's moral law, within God's moral culture. That's where we have ultimate freedom, and that's where our greatest life is. So now when you think about, the topic is retirement. So what happens as we're about to maybe leave that stage of work, whether we're in working now or about to move there? If we take a look at that, what does the culture view, or what is the culture view, the cultural view of retirement? So I'm not looking for the A for the day answer. Just what is the greater culture when they think about retirement? What do they think about? What was that? Collecting seashells. That actually is a great metaphor. Let's keep with that. Collecting seashells. No work? Golfing. Yeah, and these are all good things, right? Any other things? What else comes to mind? What's that? volunteering, right? Travel. We've got our people just coming back from Hawaii. Before that, you were in Slovenia and Croatia, so travel is definitely, that's a good thing. Time to do what you want. Did anybody hear the song that was playing when you came in? It was by Ken. He was down in Mexico, and he met Jose, who was just fishing. And now, as he's talking to him, and he says, he gave him too much money for the fish that he had. And Jose says, "Gracias, senor, when I paid him too much for all the snapper he had. Now I told him, my friend, it ain't nothing, in the best broken Spanish I knew. I said, I make a good living back home where I'm from. He smiled and said, amigo, me too. He said, I fish, I play the guitar, I laugh at the bar with my friends, I go home to my wife, I pray every night, I can do it all over again. Then he said, somewhere over Texas, I thought of my Lexus and all the stuff I worked so hard for. All the things that I've gathered from climbing that ladder didn't make much sense anymore." So it's called The Life by Kenny Chesney, and I love that song. So I've been that guy. So through my career, I was a sales rep. I sold IBM hardware. I sold software that ran companies, and then I was at financing technology. I've got 3 million air miles. Oftentimes I was in 3-4 cities a day, and I was pushing it really hard. And as I came up to about 6-7 years ago, I was looking at retirement, and I was a bit panicked. Like, what am I going to do now? Because I'm used to filled with action, filled with meetings, filled with travel. My wife was a bit panicked, like, he's going to be home all the time. He's going to be in my stuff now. And she's like, what's he going to do, micromanage me? He's got to do something. But she was a little bit panicked. So this is a topic I've been studying probably for 15 years. 6-7 years before I left the corporate world, I was like, I need to execute this part of my life well. And if I looked at the culture, oftentimes people will, I kind of summarize it, love things, use people, and worship self. That's a bit of a summary. And back in our friend Aristotle, Aristotle said, and this was 450 BC, Aristotle said, people will fall to one of 4 idols in their life. Those idols are money, pleasure, power or honor, prestige, the applause of man. You can call that last one multiple things. But people will oftentimes, as they're climbing that ladder, are going to be looking to find their greatest purpose in one of these 4. So if you take, and each one of those things aren't bad things, they're just not the highest good things. They're not a first principle. They're not load-bearing walls for the soul. So one of the books I read, and I've got a bunch of books over here that I read as I was going through this process of trying to figure out, I don't want to just retire, I want to repurpose, I want to have vitality. So one of the books I read was From Strength to Strength by Brooks. And one of the things he talked about is the people, when he studied retirement, 50% of the people that retired, it's the worst time of their life. They don't not really sure what to do. And 50% of the people, it's the greatest time of their life. And he tried to take a look at what were the things that held in common for the people that really struggled in retirement, and what were the common traits where people kind of thrived in retirement. And one of the things that was surprising to me is he said one of the common traits of people that really struggle is they have this cultural view of retirement, and one of the things is how they defined themselves. And some of the most common people that really struggle when they retire are the people that he called them the strivers. He called it the striver's curse. Because they viewed themselves as a human doing, and they defined their identity was, I was the VP of sales, or I was the top teacher in Minnetonka. Not picking on you, but they defined themselves purely by their task on what they're doing, and when that was no longer present, what do I do now? How does that resonate with the people in this room? Any thoughts on that? Do you know someone that might fit? I'm seeing some nodding of the head. I remember when I was in college, I read an article I still remember, which is pretty rare. If I go back to my days at University of Wisconsin-Madison, I read an article. It was titled "Great Men Die Twice" by Frank DeFord. And Frank DeFord was one of the people who founded Sports Illustrated, did these long-form essays. And he wrote this article about Muhammad Ali, who defined himself as the heavyweight champion, the baddest man on the planet. And once he lost that, he didn't know who he was anymore, so he kept chasing it. And what Frank DeFord said is he died the first time because he described himself as that, purely as the person who's the heavyweight champion. So I actually was in New York City, and I was at Mickey Mantle's bar, and Mickey Mantle is talking to Frank DeFord up at the bar. And I'm 22. And I'm like, I'm going to buy you guys a drink. And first of all, I wanted to thank Frank DeFord for that article. I said, how often do you see that in other people? He says, I see it in all walks of life. It wasn't just Muhammad Ali. It's anybody who hits some kind of peak and then they make a transition. They lose that sense of identity of who they are. So one of the hallmarks of this moving more towards repurposement rather than retirement is how are we going to define ourselves? Let's go to the next. And remember these 4 things. Sorry, just waving to my friends out here. Remember those 4 things. It was the money, it was the power. Oh, my buddy Isaiah. It was money, it was power, it was pleasure, and prestige or honor. Remember those 4. So let's look at what does a repurposement look like. What repurposement looks like, if I'm going to try to summarize it, is worship God, love people, and use things. So based on, my studies, but, also my life, happiness really is going to flow through 4 core elements of your life. And those 4 things are faith, family, friends, and meaningful work where you feel like you have agency that is aligned to your greatest principle. Now, work doesn't have to mean a W-2. It's whatever you are doing that you are trying to move things forward and you see a greater purpose for your life. So those are the 4 things that people are going to find most happiness in. Now, faith, back to this book, From Strength to Strength, to find oftentimes in our life, to find perspective, what we need to do is put the moment that we're into a higher, a greater perspective. Like the seashell. What are you doing when we're finding seashells? And I'm not picking on you, but I'm using that as an illustration. Yep. my feelings. That's all right. A little jolt. So it's focused on myself and my feelings, and then I'm going to push that back out. But it's that down and in orientation. What a faith walk does, it asks you to look up and out. Your first orientation is between you and God, and then what are the needs of the people that you're being sent to? So that really is, Jesus was asked to summarize the law. It's often called the royal law when you study Scripture. It's to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and then love others as yourself. That's an up and out orientation. And what that does is that allows you to have perspective in the moment that you're in. Because circumstances change, but eternal wisdom and truth never does change. So one of the things we can in our retirement is begin faith walk and pursue wisdom. And the good thing is the way your mind works, your crystallized intelligence is what it's called, that continues to grow throughout your life because you can put God's eternal truth, or you can put eternal truth items into perspective, and then we can share that with others. We do that through faith. That's how we're getting our perspective on the time that we're going through. Did you have a question? No, okay. I didn't know. I thought a hand came up. The next step is relationships. So again, happiness is going to flow. And it doesn't matter if you're 16 or 40, if you're 55 or you're 65 or 80. Happiness comes through faith, through family, through friends, and through meaningful work. So the next piece is relationships. We're made in the image of God, and before all of creation, God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit, we're in perfect relationships. And they says God is love. To have a love, you've got to have a beloved. So from the beginning of time, relationship was the central piece for all eternity. And then right away, after creation, God made Adam, and he walked with Adam. So the relationship was right there. And then after the fall, there was a separation. And then God was friends with Noah. He met Moses on the mountain. When Israel was traveling through the desert, the scripture says he tabernacled with Israel. He was with them through Israel. And then after Solomon built the temple, he filled the temple and was present right in the middle of Israel. Jesus came, Emmanuel, God with us. And Jesus walked amongst creation, just like the garden. He was recreating that. And then the Holy Spirit is with us, and Jesus said, "Behold, I'm with you for all times." So at the beginning, we're made in the image of God. We're made for relationship. So the faith is our relationship with God. But then who are we being called to? Well, we're being called to our family and to our friends and the people that we see every day. So that's a part of the relationship where we're continually seeking out. When we're focused on merely ourselves, we don't see the needs of the people we're being sent to. Just before I left, my grandson and my wife, they were hanging Christmas ornaments. I just stopped and said, "Okay, I'll get to Wooddale in a second. I put the angel on top. I hung some different ornaments, and he was just thrilled. Every ornament he wanted to talk about, and my wife told where that came from. So it was a sweet relationship. That was a little burst of happiness. Then the idea of work comes in. Now, when you say work, oftentimes, well, what did you do for work? Oftentimes people in retirement will say it's a past tense verb. But we're all beings at work. So the work, to have meaningful work, it's you have agency, that you have something where you have some earned success, and that work is aligned with your faith principles. And so that doesn't mean that it's a paid job. So currently what I do is I run a men's ministry called Men of the Kingdom, and I mentor young men. I just come alongside them, and I try to help them describe or learn about what does biblical manhood look like? How do we have the mind of Christ? And how are we salt and light wherever we're being sent? So this is the joy of my life. We've trained over 700 people, 700 young men. We've got multiple studies going on. We have a study called, Becoming a Moral Leader, Becoming a Man of the Kingdom. That's the first study. And then Becoming a Family Shepherd. It's how do you apply that role as your role as a husband and as a dad. Now, this is not a job I get a dime for, but I have meaningful work, and it's aligned to my highest principles. So as you're structuring repurposement, I want you to think about those 4 elements of happiness, the pursuit of happiness, because all of those are bounded by God's moral law. Yeah, Norm? Mm-hmm. Norm, you're a great straight man. So let's go to the next. So hold that thought for a second. So if we look at what looked like success in the first half, and I'll just go through this pretty quick. You have what's called fluid intelligence, and fluid intelligence is just how quick can we process things? Can we handle multiple things at once and still keep them in order and execute? Think of like the processor speed of a computer. And fluid intelligence builds until you're about in your early 30s and then starts to leak away. So it's the ability to problem solve and handle, and it's to be able to execute in an environment of changing things. In the second half, in your mid-30s, you start making a transition to this crystallized intelligence, which crystallized intelligence this is something, the good news is crystallized intelligence is something that builds all the way through life. It's wisdom. I take things in perspective of a longer life and apply that to the circumstances that I'm living in. So this is a kind of a transition. You begin to have those elements. First half year, we're working on resume values, resume values. What am I doing that I can put down on a piece of paper and prove that I executed or had this amount of sales or I did this job and this responsibility? In the second half, you want to work on eulogy values. What are those things people will talk about that was important? What are the essence of what Norm was? I was with Norm in Slovenia and Croatia. Norm has a heart of service like few others I've seen. We traveled all day. I'll just brag on you for a second. We traveled all day driving through the mountains, and one of the guys we were with left his cell phone back at the town. How many hours back was that, Norm? 2 hours back. So we're at the end of the night. Everybody's exhausted, including Norm. We just traveled to get here. Norm got in the van that he just drove everybody to the inn, and he and his wife drove back and got the guy's cell phone so he had it when he woke up in the morning. That was selfless service towards somebody else, a heart of service. Those are the type of people we need in the world. So you start working on, do what Norm does. You're working on those eulogy values. And your purpose slightly changes, where in a job you had a purpose, you had objectives you had to meet. Your purpose, that's where we got to find that later in life. And I've got a process for you there. And the focus is on relationships. Yeah. Yep, that's their identity, correct. Amen. Correct. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. You are moving from a human doing, like I'm a sales rep, or I'm a police officer, or I'm a teacher, I'm an executive at Target, to, okay, what am I now? What's my purpose? So my purpose is I'm to glorify God by advancing his kingdom through equipping and encouraging the next generation of leaders in the church. So no matter what I'm doing, this is what I should be about. I've been asked a couple different times to step into a business setting, and since I know what my new identity is, I'm like, that's not my swim lane anymore. I can help you in your business, but here's what I'm about. So how do we make that transition? We got to find out how we are uniquely made, how do we feel God's pleasure, and who are we called to serve in our mission fields. That's where you're going to start defining what's your identity. But your identity is no longer on the doings of lights. It's what's my being, what am I here for? And how am I living out those relationships? What does that look like? Yeah. 100%. In fact, through the men of the kingdom, in becoming a man of the kingdom, one of the units I teach people, and these are guys in their 20s, the company you work for, Target, I worked for a very large bank. They all had mission statements, but you're an eternal being, so I teach these young guys they should have a mission statement as well. Who are you while you are doing things? You are something before you do anything. But I think sometimes that we get consumed by our task. We let that define us. It's not just a retirement thing. It's an everyday thing. It's a kingdom value. Yep, exactly. Who are you? What God says about you is more important than what your job title is. Now, I just want to talk about relationships. Relationships, oftentimes in work, we have a lot of relationships that we do things with people at work, and it's based on, I'll call it more transactional. People that you interact with, and you have to do something for them, and they have to do something for you, and that can come in lots of different flavors. And back to our friend Aristotle, he defines friendship in 3 different ways. There's utility, it's based on a transaction. There were people that worked with me that helped work on the different deals or finance the deals that I pulled together. And that there was a friendship there. I did something for them and they did something for me. And the second level of relationships are joy-based relationships or fun. You enjoy doing things with another person. So that's like, I would say, a higher level of relationships than that first level of relationships, the transactional level. And the third level of relationships in Aristotle's model is virtue-based relationships. You both come alongside and you see the true, the good, and the beautiful, and you follow it. Now, every relationship can have those components. So my wife, when we were we had we had a transactional relationship oftentimes when we had young kids. Okay, there's certain things we had to get done. We had bills had to be paid, money had to be made, kids had to get to the school bus, homework to be done. And we were really efficient. Okay, you handle the bills, I'll handle the investments. You handle the inside, I'll handle the outside. And we had a transactional relationship that everything worked. But we also had a joy-based relationship as well. And before we got married, we learned to scuba dive together. So that's a lifelong thing. Every year we go scuba diving for at least a week. We find something to do. We ski together. So we'll go to the mountains. We play pickleball together. You know, there's certain things we just have joy. We travel together. We play with our grandkids together. We enjoy our daughters. We'll have different dinner evenings. But my wife is a woman of great virtue. So we can study scripture. We can talk about different ideas. We can say what's important in the world. And that idea, as C.S. Lewis calls it, it's the highest level of love is you're walking shoulder to shoulder. You're looking at something beautiful, and you look over and say, you too. Not just the beauty of a sunset, but the beauty of truth, of goodness, of the true, the good, and the beautiful. And what happens oftentimes during our work life is our relationships are typified by that transaction level. And I call them deal friends, and the virtue is real friends. It's just, it allows me to rhyme, so I'm happy. But there were people, I worked at the same place for 29 years. I hired many of these people, and my wife said, well, you'll never leave your job because your best friends are there. Well, that was true. I was just with a couple of them the last couple days down in Naples. But there was a lot of people that and they were true friends, but as soon as I stopped working there, when I see them, I'd be happy to see them, but the friendship was surely based on that transaction levels of the friendship. What happens is once that's there, and that's the main level of your relationships, what we found is people in retirement right now, the loneliest people, it's called a loneliness epidemic, is people that are retired, and a lot of their friendship were transactional. It's not people that shoulder to shoulder, and they're considering and they're seeing something beautiful, like a mom playing with a child, and you just look and wonder and smile that's everything's good in the world there, and you can say, you too. You have that higher level of friendship, but so many people are trapped in the deal friends. They don't know how to make real friends. So part of the joy in retirement is that relationship piece. Your greatest happiness is going to come from your relationship with God, your family, and your friends. Think about those three different levels of friendship. Who in your life are in that first level, who's in the second level, and who's in the third level? Again, I'm not saying the first level is not a friend. It is a friend. But you want to make the transition into the friendships in that second and third level. And friendships are made through shared experiences. So if you have people that are in that first level relationship and you want to move to the second level, find something and do an adventure with someone. You know, relationships are built through shared experiences. Andrew, I'm going to not pick on you, I want to highlight you. Andrew does an amazing job of creating shared experiences for some of his best friends in college. Describe Man Camp for me. What'd you do for last year's Man Camp?
We went down
Or this year's?
Northfield. We brought his RV over to a campground. We went on a hike. We had a couple challenges for our kids to try to push the needle and challenge themselves as much as they could, and then we had them memorize a Bible verse based off of justice. The first year's theme was justice.
So I'm sure there's a story that's come out of that. You still laugh with your friend.
Yep, absolutely. Basically, it took about 5 minutes on the hike before all of our kids were stripped down naked in a creek. It was about 40 degrees.
What a great memory that you have there. Yeah. Tell me about your pond hockey tournament.
The pond hockey tournament is same. One of those buddies is part of this too. 11 years ago, I kind of was berating my friends for being in North Dakota and Fargo.
Which is legitimate, by the way.
It's legitimate.
Yep.
In Minnesota, not having a pair of hockey skates. So after telling them that you're nuts and you're crazy, I said we're going to play Advanced Sports to get some skates. And then we put together a pond hockey tournament where all are welcome. Let's just get guys together to spend some meaningful time together. And it's turned into this amazing thing that we're doing 11 years later. And it's our favorite day of the winter, maybe the year.
So, but it's an opportunity. Relationships are built through shared experiences. So if you have loneliness creeping in, look at the people in your life or the people that you're being sent to, and how do you have a shared experience together? So I'll do pickleball tournaments, and there's some people that I transaction and play pickleball with, but there's some people I really enjoy playing with. And one of them is, my daughter is dating a hockey player and a Packer fan. I have no idea what happened. So I know it's bad parenting, really. But this young guy is a tremendous young guy, and he was a college hockey goalie. He's probably one of the top 10 pickleball players in the state. Well, I want to get closer to this young guy. So we played 3 or 4 tournaments together. We played tournaments, out in Philadelphia. We played down in Florida and a couple locally where we're competing and we're working together. So I need to have shared experiences with this guy who's now been dating my daughter for over a year. I also want to try to move that to that third level of friendship, the virtue-based friendship. So he's joined my Men of the Kingdom. We've done a couple different Bible studies together. Let's consider what's the true, the good, and the beautiful. And as we go through that, we're building the texture of our friendship and relationship. And that's where so much of the joy in our life is going to come from. So as we move into the repurposement phase, relationships are key. It's a relationship with God, our family, our friends. So think about that 3-tiered, and how do we move towards the next level of friendship. So now, I want to help you create your plan, because I want to have some action items coming out of this. So there's a couple things. I want to, first of all, talk about prioritizing things. Has anybody ever read C.S. Lewis's First and Second Things? Okay, you're going to. I've got a copy of the table. You don't have to read it now. But one of the things that C.S. Lewis wrote in this essay, and C.S. Lewis was one of the more important persons of our last century. He was an author, he was an apologist, he was a fiction writer, and he wrote all these essays, and I love his essays, and this is one of my favorite. I've probably read this essay 15 times and thought about it 15 million. I hope it will become a good friend of yours. What C.S. Lewis talks about, and go through, the first couple paragraphs are in Norse mythology and the Germans and the wrong theology, but it's only a couple pages. What he really gets to is there's first, second, third, and fourth order goods, and first order goods are your highest priority, and then you have second order goods and third order goods. But notice those are goods as well. But what you want to do is you need to keep them in priority. Because C.S. Lewis says every time we take a second order good and put it over a first order good, you lose them both. because first order goods protect second order goods, and second order good protects third. One of the ways I think about it is as long as these goods are in their right priority, they're fine. But when one good gets out of its priority cycle, it's like an invasive species. It runs wild. There's no protection, and you'll lose them both. So I was in sales, and I would sell and negotiate, and you know what a value is based on what you will trade for it, right? That's the value of something. What's the price of gold now? Anybody know? I don't know if it's about, I think it's about $3,300 an ounce, somewhere in there. Does that seem about right? Okay, let's go with it. So, let's say I have a whole bunch of gold back here. I've got 100 ounces of gold, and I'm going to sell it to you for $2,000 an ounce. How much of that gold do you want? Who said all of it? A for the day. You want as much as I can give you, right? Because this one's more value than that. If I can make that exchange, here you go. I'm going to sell it to you for $1 million an ounce. How much you want? None of it. Because we have a properly ordered economy. The C.S. Lewis thinking in first and second and third order goods, I call it the divine economy, where things are weighted appropriately. Now, when we talked about that cultural view of retirement, we talked about fishing, we did golf and collecting seashells. Those are all good things. Those are all fine things in life. But they're probably third or fourth order goods. They're not load-bearing walls for your soul. They're not meant to be. But they're still good. They're still good gifts that God gave you. Aristotle, his four things that men classically fall for, the four idols, are power, pleasure, money, or honor, or fame. Those are all good things, but they're not first-order things. First order things are the kingdom of God, your relationship and with God. Your second order good are your relationships with your families and your friends, and these are the third order good. But what happens is sometimes people start moving third order goods up above first and second. I'm gonna choose pleasure over my relationship with my family. Challenge flags got to hit there, but it happens all the time when people aren't aware of what their divine economy is set up to handle. Small hat tip. This one's free, no charge. Pleasure is a good thing. God made you with a body. He made you a certain way to have pleasure. When you're pursuing pleasure alone, it's trouble. Pursue pleasure with others as a relationship building, as a shared experience, then it's a good gift because the relationship's higher. It's in a fine place. Because when we choose money, power, pleasure, honor, vocation, travel over our relationships with God or with others, we're buying that gold at $1 million an ounce. And you lose a priority. So priority is a key thing I want you to be thinking about. And I've got that article on your tables, C.S. Lewis, First and Second Things. And he ends it with, if you don't know what your first order good is, your first order good is determine what your first order good should be. So I put up my idea, what I think a divine economy looks like, go through, and this is part of aligning yourself into an up and out view on your retirement or your life, away from the down and in perspective, is when I have my priorities set up. Next screen. So build from the cornerstone. So every day, think about, how am I making a deposit into faith, into my family, into my friends, and some meaningful purpose where I feel like I have some earned success. I'm doing something that's aligned to my greatest principle. This is something to do every day. Now in relationships, Norm, I want to get back to your point now. I've got a document on your table. If you don't have it, it's called your personal mission field. Now the personal mission field, I'll just describe it for you quickly. These are a couple tools you can use after you leave here. But from a personal mission field, the description of how to do it is on the front, but I want you to turn to the back. What it lays out is this is your life inside the circle, and every arrow that is on the screen is a place that you're being sent to. So it might be your family, it might be your neighbors, it might be the book study that you have. It could be, if you're working, the people at work. It could be, I play pickleball. Pickleball is one of mine. And what you do is you start putting on those arrows the different places where you're being sent, because I believe that God is sending you out every week. You're on mission. He's sending you on purpose. Are you living on purpose? So it's trying to describe the places that you go. And at the end of each arrow, you put who are the people that come to mind in each location. So my first arrow is my wife. So my family, my home. My second arrow is probably my 2 daughters and my son-in-law and my grandson. So I'll put their name on that. And then I might put the Wooddale board on there. I'm going to put the Men of the Kingdom board, my Men of the Kingdom leaders. I have a discipleship group on Wednesday nights. That's one of my arrows. And I put the different people I see every day through there. These are the relationships of the people in your life. If you're being sent there, you're being sent on purpose. And what I want you to do is keep this with you for 2 to 3 weeks and see the places that you go are pretty similar. I've been doing this personal mission field thinking and exercise with people. Most people see about the same 40 to 60 people every week. So Erica's husband, Tyler, when I was working with Tyler, he was going through his mission field, and he said one of the places he goes was his mission field was this small grocery store. What's the grocery store he goes to again? He goes to Lakewind. That's where he shops. And he buys his meat from one person at Lakewinds. And what he realized is he sees the same meat guy every week. So Tyler's like, well, I need to know something. So he talks to the meat guy and finds out he loves birds. So when he goes there, he's like, hey, what birds have you been looking at? And he found a book on birding, and he brought it to him. And now he has this conversational relationship with the meat guy at Lakewinds. He's no longer just the meat guy. Now he knows his name. He knows something about him. He's building up that relationship, not just the transaction of the meat. Now, hey, they start to enjoy the birding together. So he's developing a relationship. So what it's doing is trying to map out a group of people that you are being sent to that you can live on purpose. Now, the first time I did this, I don't know if it was this room or the room downstairs or down the hall, but I was teaching, this was 20 years ago. I'm teaching the Wooddale 6th grade, and I taught my 2 daughters. So my daughter went to Sunday school. I went with her. I was going to be her Sunday school teacher. So I stayed with Sammy, my oldest daughter, for 2 years. And then when Katie, my younger daughter, she went to kindergarten, well, I went there with her. And I would just bounce back and forth, 2 years, 2 years. So I'm standing up in front, and I'm doing this personal mission field. And one of the arrows, I was teaching 6th grade. I said the 6th grade class. Kind of surprised me. I'm like, oh, that's part of my mission field. And I started writing the names of the people at the end of that arrow. And what I realized, so many of the young men in that room, I'd been their moral leader since they've been in 6th grade. It kind of floored me. I'm like, well, these guys are part of the mission of my life. So I stayed with these guys through junior high. I went to church camp with them. When they were in senior high and you went on mission trips, I went with them. Then they went to college. And I was a VP of sales. I could be in Boston one day and Miami the next day. But in Boston, hold it, Andrew Larson, he's going to school in Boston. He was a running back there. And I would go to Boston. I'd say, hey, Andrew, get a couple of your knucklehead buddies. I'm taking you to lunch. And I just stayed with these guys. They had college football games. I'd go to the college football game, go to the choir. And as those guys were coming out of college, a couple of them said, hey, Dino, 7 in 1 year. What does it look like now? I'm going to be working for Medtronic, or I'm going to be working with Health Partners. What does it look like to be a Christian in this type of world? How do I find purpose? So I said, give me a couple weeks. And I came up with this little Men of the Kingdom curriculum. And that's been the mission of my life. So once you start living a life on purpose, yes, it begins while you're still working, but it flows into that retirement area. And this is the mission of your life. So I hope you'll find this personal mission field helpful as something you can work on. It's a tool you can use to help making sure that you're spending your most important time in those relationships. And that's going to give you purpose, because your purpose comes from Norm. The people I'm being sent to, the ends of those blue circles, those 40 to 60 people, what are the needs of those people? How am I using my conversation to serve them? What acts of service can I do for that group of people? And what transformation am I seeking? Jesus said we're to be salt and light. So how am I being salt and light? And what you'll find, the purpose of your life is based on the needs of the people you're being sent to, but you need to be aware of that. So to do that, we need to have a process of looking up and looking out. So I see it's 101. I've been talking the whole time. Any questions? Or I want to respect everybody's time. I try to give you a couple takeaways here.
All right, who's got a question for Dean? Yeah, right up front here. I'm going to put you on the mic so people listening online can hear.
Thank you. Wonderful presentation and important topic. Is there a list of resources for where people can go to get the help like this they need? A few years ago, I started a program. I was at a community church called Next Chapter, and our goal was to help people successfully transition from one stage of life or one chapter of life to the next. And that, unfortunately, has ended. But we found some great resources. Alan Page, Will Steger, all of these people that came and spoke. And there's a program at the University of Minnesota that's really targeted to seniors that I had never known about. I'm a grad there, but I'd never heard of this program. And it's pretty vital, and it's pretty big, and it's about continued learning and relationships. And so I'd encourage anybody to go to the U and find that resource. But is there a list?
What's the name of the resource?
Well, it's something that I'm sorry, I can't
that's
remember.
Okay.
But it's exactly right.
Yeah,
That's
so
exactly right.
I'm with Men of the Kingdom, so part of this presentation, you go forward, you can put my name and phone number up there. So I should have www.menofthekingdom.com resources on there. I've got the personal mission statement, personal mission field documents you can work through. We have podcasts where I'm walking through a lot of these topics as well, and I have some articles. And we also have a blog that gets into these topics. And I'm happy to meet with anybody at any time. I also have a list of the books and the resources that I use I've got 7, 8 books over here.
Wonderful.
I think you dive into the Sermon on the Mount. It's always a go-to of mine, because that describes the kingdom characteristics of what we are before we do anything. That's a mainstay. I've got the studies on the Sermon on the Mount is specifically on that book. And Arthur Brooks, I've got a couple books over here by Brooks on how to build a life, and he talks about that strength to strength, which is from Psalm 84. Blessed are those who go from strength to strength, for they find their strength in the Lord. How do I realize what my strength is now? I was really good at problem solving and executing into a business environment in the past. Okay, I've got a different skills now. If I was in that environment, I'd get swamped now. That's what I was, but it didn't define me.
Yep.
So the books and resources are over here. Feel free to call me. I'm happy to meet with anybody if you want to go deeper into this as well.
Thank you. Really appreciate
thank
it.
you. Great question. You also had a question.
Yeah. Larry?
Ollie is an educational thing. My brother ran the one in Iowa State. So it's more of a way of keeping your mind strong through learning of different topics.
Yes.
But my question is more basically it's not even a question. What I found out when I retired is I didn't have a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So I defined my purpose. And it was actually to look back on who were old friends that life had gotten in the way and everybody went in different directions, to call them back up and reconnect. And we get together 3-4 times a year in lunches that we all get together with, or we go. I actually got some friends that I invited to go to the Christmas concert.
Fantastic.
It's more connecting back with people who help define who you are as a Christian, I thought.
Yep. And based on research and based on everything I've read, your happiness, your pursuit of happiness is going to come from faith, which that's the purpose. And it's going to come from family, friends, and again, that meaningful work. But you're defining your purpose as I'm going to be the connector for this group of people. Let's get some new shared experiences to build that fabric. So think about the 3 different tiers of friendship that you have there, and how do you bring in higher levels of friendship with that group? Yeah.
All right, we've got time for one more if anybody else wants to shoot one really
And I'm
quick.
going to hang out for a little bit afterwards.
Yeah. All right, it is so rare to have a speaker do what Dean just did, to put his personal cell phone number up there and email address. That's what I love about Dean. Dean is the real deal. And when he talks about, repurposing and not retiring, he talks about these young men that he's building into. But Dean, I've seen you over and over and over and over again do it with people who are at this stage of life too, to say, hey, how can you use this time most effectively?
Yeah,
So,
I'm looking for people in this stage of life that want to maybe lead them into the kingdom.
yeah,
so
exactly.
Go pour into this next generation.
And to the women who are in the group who aren't going to lead a men of the kingdom, there's some really cool things happening for women right now too.
Yeah, we're developing a curriculum. Well, the curriculum is there. It's called Women of the Kingdom. My wife and another person are developing that. I got to create new videos for that, but my job is not to mentor young women.
Yeah.
That's going to be my wife, my wife and another
Yeah,
person.
so we're going to have to bring Lisa here one of these days, because you got to meet Lisa if you haven't met
she's
her, who's
awesome.
an amazing, amazing woman herself. And, they say behind every great man is a great woman, and Lisa is a great woman who has done amazing, amazing things in her life. Well, thank you for joining us today. There's leftover pizza there, so grab some pizza on your way out. We will see you in January with 4 great Lunch and Learn sessions coming up in January. Remember that marriage conference, and there's a whole lot of other stuff that you can find at familyresource.info that's going to be happening in January through May. We're very, very excited about that. And again, Dean said he'll stick around. If you need a copy of the C.S. Lewis article, if you don't have one on your table, I've got a few extras back at the sound booth too. So thank you.
And I have some more. I have some more mission field documents if people were short on that as well. Thank you.
Came out for the first time, so yeah, it's exciting. We'll get them back in. Yeah, we will. Yep.